We have to do a formal introduction. Welcome back to The Good, the Bad, and the Orange with our lovely panel and, of course, our producer, Andy. So today, we're going to talk about fake news. And we're not going to talk about it from the standpoint of California or protests or anything like that, although that would be fun, maybe. We're going to talk about it from a real estate standpoint. And fake news isn't necessarily that all the information is false, but it's how it's applied.
Yeah.
Application. So, what's your favorite piece? What's the thing that irritates you the most about our YouTube, TikTok, Instagram prognosticators? Bill raises his hand.
Yeah, so this is something that over the years just drove me nuts. And if you think about it, even from a seller's perspective, when you go in and you meet with the seller, what do they want from you? They want to know how much is my house worth and what's your fee, right? They don't care about your credentials, where that comes from. And I think it's important to know that, my opinion doesn't mean anything unless you respect my opinion of value, right? So my point in this is that with these sources of news, quote unquote, what's the source of the news? Where does that come from? What qualifies them to even speak about the real estate industry or give some opinion? Because they're likely never sold a home. Like some of these people have never sold a home. Or they just, they don't have the data, they're not in the market like we are every single day.
Yeah, what are they drawing from? It's probably not personal experience. It's probably an over-sensationalized headline that they've grabbed somewhere and then now they're regurgitating it online. And you know that with anything online or in a paper, not that anyone reads that anymore, but it's meant to grab your attention. It's supposed to evoke fear so that you read it and learn about what you need to be afraid of, which apparently is today's real estate market.
Buying a house is so scary.
It's
God.
Yes.
But even with those headlines, you'll see a headline that just says, the market's going to crash. And, and then you read down into the details and they say the market came down 1% in value. Like, that's not a crash.
That's a normal market.
Of course. But the point is, with the headlines, they want to grab your attention.
Yeah.
They want to sell subscriptions or whatever it is they're looking to sell.
In our pregame, you were talking about that piece of, how do they know what a normal market is? So selling and buying in a normal market hasn't been experienced for, you said 5 years.
I think it's been at least 5 years. I think for, prior to 2023, when rates really changed, sellers didn't have to do a whole lot to get their home sold. Agents didn't have to necessarily work as hard to make a deal happen because buyers were out there in droves, snapping up properties, multiple offers, that kind of thing. So we've actually moved more towards a balanced, a more normal market, and in some cases a slightly buyer leaning market. But this is more normal than the normal we've seen.
The other thing about that is, when they talk about market crashes, there always has to be an event. This is a Tina Tamborism. She said we can't have a foreclosure crisis if there's not an event that creates a foreclosure crisis.
Right.
Yeah. And this is true, really, of a housing market crash. So the thing that all the YouTubers, is that what we said we'd call them?
Yes.
YouTubers and
Yes.
TikTokers.
Yeah.
They will take maybe a fact. So housing has declined 1%, which again, if you're in the business, you go, well, that's basically flat. 1% is flat. It's not a decline. But then they'll apply, there's this one knucklehead who said that the Phoenix market, for instance, is very volatile and cyclical because it's a seasonal market based on, second home buyers and tourism and all these things. And well, 20 years ago, that was true, and we saw that. Today, they don't even talk about it. One of the headlines was, look at the TSMC effect takes hold. I mean, the whole growth over in the Northwest Valley and spilling into Cape Creek and even Scottsdale is because of the massive amount of dollars invested in Arizona and the jobs created and the high paying jobs and all the ancillary businesses that come along with that. If you're in a housing crash, you don't have that kind of growth.
Right.
You just don't. And so we always will have some fluctuations. The one thing we know is all it takes is one change right now, and that would be probably primarily rates, because that affects consumer confidence a little bit, but it affects those buyers. So, maybe even 0.5% change in rates, because everyone is kind of adjusted to what the new baseline rate's going to be, is going to make a massive movement in the housing market. And they don't want to talk about that. They want to compare it to other things.
Yeah. Now there's a ton of, I think, pent up demand too. So if you do see that rate come down 0.5 point, a point would be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I think you'd have a surge of activity in the market because so many more people would then qualify, would expand their budget, and it'd open up a lot of doors for them.
Yeah, and I think, when we're counseling buyers too, we need to come to the table and help them accept reality for what it is. These are normal and healthy rates historically, and perhaps it's just about getting them ready and prepared for that. If affordability is an issue, what are we doing to get them ready to take that on? How are we empowering buyers to feel like buying a home is smart and good for them and helps them get to their long-term goal.
Well, what's going to happen too is when the rates do take that little dip, prices will get a lot more firm. There's no negotiating, the things that were negotiable now might change. So there'll be another shift.
And that's just because the demand will increase. And now you have that balance of supply and demand that's affected in a positive way if you're a seller, maybe negative if you're a buyer.
Yeah, another thing the YouTuber, TikTokers don't talk about is consumer confidence. End of May 28th, consumers were more upbeat about the outlook for business conditions, the job market, and their homes. This is from Mac Daily. As a result, larger shares of consumers said they plan to buy cars, homes, and major appliances, as well as take vacations over the coming 6 months. That's the unseen. Everyone that we get caught up in, actually look at all the noise on the news right now. So there's a little bit of good protesting and a little bit of bad protesting, and there's a little bit of fighting going on in the Middle East, which has been happening since the Bible was written, and that becomes kind of a distraction. But when you look at this, consumers underlying say, I'm feeling better about things, and that's the piece again. The sensationalism doesn't talk about is where's consumer. That's the ones we want. It's consumers.
There's
Right?
a consumer sentiment index.
Yep.
And Fannie Mae does that.
Yep.
So they just did it, they updated it for June. June 9th is when it came out. And last year in August, there were 17% of the people surveyed, 17% said it was a good time to buy a house, which is the lowest that it's ever been, right?
Yeah.
This year, this June, it's now 26% of the people think it's a good time to buy a house, meaning that more and more people are feeling like buying a home is a better opportunity.
I think that kind of move
Yeah.
in the current
That doesn't happen in a crash.
perceived volatility, yes, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful to have Bill here, because I was still stuck in May, but what did he do? He jumped to June. He studied
the 9th of every month. I look to see what the update is. So.
Yeah.
Hey, it's better than watching late night TV, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Is that when you
I
do
don't
it?
know. I don't watch late night TV.
I don't either. So
Yeah.
Well, I think the fact that consumer confidence is up, I'm sure it has a lot to do with what's going on in the economy, but
Politically too.
But you have to think about too the news cycle. Like there's this giant, S storm that's coming. It's bad news. Rates are high. Affordability is down. We're gonna have a crash. People have fatigue on that. They're at some point going to move on from that story and recognize that I still have to live my life, and I still have a need. I have a seller need. I have a buyer need,
Sure.
and it goes beyond what's going on in a headline.
Yeah.
So,
Well, how come the crash hasn't happened yet?
Well-
Everybody's waiting, and they've been talking about this. When is it coming?
Exactly.
It's
So I think
like, has
the
it not
consumer at a certain
happened?
point becomes numb and just doesn't believe anything that they read anymore.
Yeah.
You know, think about like inflation, when they were saying inflation is transitory, and you know what? That's the families that are saying, you know what? I'm spending this much more a month every month on food or gas or just household bills. Inflation is not transitory, it kept going. You know, so you just
Yeah.
don't believe the media, or the politicians, whoever it is, that's
Yeah.
giving that information.
I think you have to recognize that a crash is always possible, but it's not the likely scenario. So I think perhaps paying too much attention to that the headline and all of that it's almost it's a waste of time, because it's preventing people from getting to the place they need to get to.
Well, they try to create self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that if you hear it over and over again, you all of a sudden start to believe it a little bit. And that's why I think it's important for us as agents to really understand the facts of it, not necessarily the rose-colored glasses version. I mean, we have those in my pocket here somewhere, but what's the real facts so you can make an educated decision. And right now, there's inventory, the market is flat, there's room to negotiate, and you can buy a rate down, and that isn't quite, like we all said, that's not going to last. We don't know. Maybe it's another 6 months. Maybe it isn't. All it's going to take is one factor shift, and we all know how fast things can change.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a snap.
If an event happens, things
Yep.
can change, sure.
And so that's why I think buyers just need to be out there, and it's not bad for sellers either. You talked about that, how in a normal market, if you get a good agent, they know how to sell in this market. So it doesn't mean you have to take a discount. It just means you have to prepare, have some patience, hit all the avenues, different ones, not just throw it in MLS and hope. Networking. There's all these other things that we've had to kind of dust off to do to sell property, and the property still sells.
Yeah, and we have a lot at our disposal now. I mean, we have the Cromford Report. We have statistics available so we can empower a client with facts that can help them. So strategizing, knowing the days on market, what's the available inventory, what are the price ranges. You can help them actually predict using statistics, right around what they can, expect to get on their home, and how long that's going to take.
Yeah.
The other piece that I think when you talk about the tools is there's been talk about some companies wanting to keep their listings private. I was thinking about that as it applies to like code of ethics and all these things we subscribe to, and how do we represent sellers and the market and other agents and treat them with respect and those things. And to me, we saw this with a company who claimed to sell stuff in hours for a while, when they would only put their houses out and you could look at it for a very short period of time, and then you had to make a decision. And I thought about how contrary that was to the code that we all operate under.
And their fiduciary responsibility to the client.
Yep. And no one talks about fiduciary. Right now is when fiduciary means so much. And our job is to get our homes exposed to the highest number of buyers, right? Not to within just our company, or just in a way that limits traffic, so maybe we can get both sides.
Right.
It's to promote it, and I think that sellers need to take that into account as they're interviewing agents. Yes, it's nice to talk to maybe some groovy people who talk about this, we're going to keep it in-house and you won't have to worry about open houses, and we'll just do it to this group. Yeah, special. But that is not what we're called to do.
Right.
We are called to promote. It doesn't matter who sells it on the other side, as long as it's a legal binding contract that meets our sellers, goals and ambitions. And so that's another piece of this that drives me absolutely crazy. As we see that, I see the spin on that as fake.
Yeah.
Oh, we're better represent you because we're gonna hold your listing close.
There are very few situations where that that strategy makes any sense.
I agree.
Maybe you have like a Picasso on the wall and certain things in the home that you don't want broadcast all over the internet. But for most sellers, like having the most exposure that you can possibly have for your home is going to put more money in your pocket every single time.
When we sold our home, I took a lot of risk. I had a lot of my original oil paintings that I did,
My
which
God.
are literally
Priceless.
Call this
And
Smithsonian.
funny, you know what? I was really figured one or two of them have been stolen. Not a one.
Well, that's
Yeah.
Not a one.
I actually did have a listing with a Picasso up in Cave Creek, and because the seller had a lot of priceless artwork, I had just attended every showing. And guess what? It was a different brokerage that ended up representing the buyers. So I will
Wow.
tell you, having it all in-house probably isn't the strategy.
Yeah. And with those showings, usually you're vetting the buyer before you show.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not just open houses on Sunday and people are, coming through the house.
Well, and I did hold open houses, but I was a team of two at the time, so you're never leaving anybody alone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got off topic.
That's what
I
we
just
do.
wanted to brag about the Picasso.
I think you should. Any of you with
Wow.
large art, call Stephanie Kaufman. The other thing that I think is a misnomer is they talk about prices rising, but the pay as raised picture is shifting. Here's how Arizona compares. And the Business Journal Bureau of Labor and Statistics data, which found average year-over-year weekly wages increased in 91 of 100 nation's largest markets. Okay, that everyone says inflation is down to 2%. In Phoenix, year-over-year for March, wages were up 9.3%.
That's great.
phenomenal.
Housing has not increased 9.3% in last year. So from an affordability standpoint, if people truly look at it, housing has become more affordable in Phoenix. I'm not trying to spin that. I know there's an expense to it, and we have to, it has to fit in a budget. But
Well, that's the data.
that's the
what it
data.
says.
We have not been going backwards. We actually made a leap forward, and that's a pretty big leap when you really think about housing affordability as it or wages compared to housing appreciation. So there you go. Pry the wallet open. Did I say that? I should have. So what have your clients been saying? What have your clients been saying?
I have to say, I always ask people, what's your thought about the real estate market? Have you seen anything in the news? And most of them haven't really paid too much attention to it. I think, we're in this is what we do every single day, so clearly it's top of mind for us, probably more than just your average consumer. But they begin to think about it when they're thinking of selling. So sometimes people say, oh yeah, I kind of read some things, and how's the market? But they don't really know, right? They're kind of asking. But I really am surprised at the amount of people who are thinking about buying or selling property. They really have no understanding as to what's happening in the market.
It's funny you say that because we all focus in on the thing that we think affects us personally most. And so what else are we going to focus on is real estate because that's all we do, right? But consumers have a lot of other things to focus on in life. And if one is I need to buy a house or I need to sell a house, I don't think that's when they're thinking about, but maybe I shouldn't because maybe wages aren't high enough, or maybe I shouldn't because there aren't no mortgage applications are down for new purchases. They don't think that way. They call an agent, and that's where we have the ability to guide them through that and give them the real information.
Well, there's a lot of information out there too, but then it's like, what does that mean for me? Does the average consumer really know that? Because how do the mortgage applications affect me as a seller or a buyer?
Yeah, if you're in a multi-million-dollar, you don't care. Right? I mean, I shouldn't say you don't care, but that's pretty low on the list of things that affect you. And even wages. If you're selling a $2 or $3 million house, it's not likely the buyer for that is concerned about what their wages are doing over the past 12 months.
Right.
And it's the other thing, mortgage demand stands firm. It says purchase applications increased 11% week over week, and this was again in May, and 13% year over year. Now that's contrary to what we seem to be hearing in the negative. Granted, demand is lower, so I'm not saying that it's
But actually, like if you look at the numbers through the end of May, we've had more closed transactions than we did last year. So that's your demand side of things. So actually demand isn't lower. You know, it's ticked up a little bit. The difference is this, is that the supply side of things has ticked up so much more that relative to the demand, it feels like it's less.
But we still have under like 28,000 homes.
Yeah.
Well,
That's crazy.
I will say, you know, the buyers I'm working with are excited right now. They don't love the interest rates, but we've been sitting on this interest rate change for over a year now. So they've accepted the reality of it, and they're excited because they have potential to not have to bring as much to closing. They are asking for things, and I get excited too as an agent because when I'm showing a property, they want to negotiate with me before they make an offer, and I'm like, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, I would say
You know,
motivated agent.
as a buyer's agent now, I'm excited to go to bat for, you know, my buyer, you know, knowing that they really have an opportunity to win on something, you know, as opposed to maybe I was the 20th showing that day and I'm like, oh, this is an uphill one.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's overwhelmingly positive for buyers, despite that change.
Well, from the listing side of it, I am calling everyone who shows my properties. I'm following up with those buyers agents, and I'm really, really nice to them because guess what? They have a buyer that was interested and came to look at my property. So I want to treat them with respect and get a deal done.
And that's really the challenge as a listing agent right now is getting bodies in the door that are they're bona fide buyers and that they're motivated, and also just counseling your sellers that you know, market conditions have shifted a little bit. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get, you know, an awesome sale, you know, an awesome deal, you know, out of your house. But you know, just level setting that expectation that it might look different than what their perception of the market was a few years ago.
Yeah, and I'm I mean, obviously your clients are always looking, you know, what does my home look like compared, you know, with our competition. So it's important that they come out looking their best, putting their best foot forward, and, you know, being open to negotiations and sitting down and talking those offers through.
Yeah, agreed.
Silence.
Jay, are you still with us?
I was looking at their thing going, how come that isn't flashing? And then Andy texts me and goes, don't worry, we got all the other audio. I'm like, oh, you know, that's why I'm not tech.
Right.
The other thing that I find interesting is I've been doing a couple open houses, and you know, everyone falls off because they just think it's too hot. But they talked about how there's how we should shift who we're focusing on for our buyer and seller pool. You know, so it's not so much about, well, it's the winter people, the second home people or third home people. There's still people that live here like us.
Isn't that funny?
Year round.
Yeah.
Even when the sun gets so close to us that you know, it fries everything. And you know, I ran into a couple this weekend, and they had just moved here from Ohio, and nothing wrong with Ohio, right? You know the song? Except the snow and the rain.
I think that predates us.
Yeah. Okay. Bowling for Soup.
Oh, maybe not. I don't know.
Andy, he's shaking his head. My daughter got me.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow,
Right.
but here they are. They're renting. They want to buy a house. They both have really, really exceptional jobs. Young people wandering around because.
What else are you gonna do on a
What
Sunday?
else are you gonna do when it's, you know?
I love to wander in all black, in a burqa.
Yeah.
In the summer.
Black and a burqa. Well, it'd be fashionable.
I'd make it one.
So do you find that the open house activity, like people coming through open houses, are equal to the types of showings that you would get with an agent appointment?
No,
They're
not
not.
necessarily. I mean, it's funny because I had so many people come
Right.
in that said they had agents.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
It's-
I disagree right now.
Right.
Because I can't tell you how many showings I've had during the open house where the agent was not accompanied, but I got their agent's information.
Right.
And so I knew that they had a bona fide, agent relationship. It seems to me that a lot of times buyers, because there is so much inventory, they're kind of poking around on their own
Right.
first before they engage with their agent, which is fine.
Yeah, sure.
But so I'm pushing open houses right now because I think you're going to get a lot more activity and set yourself apart.
Yeah.
Well, I will add this too. If you look at like families that are migrating to Phoenix, Midwest is not out of school yet. So all those families that are moving from Chicago area, they will be here soon.
Yeah, this month.
They are out
Or
of
July.
school soon. So
Yeah, Arizona gets out earlier than
Yes.
many other areas.
Right, and so I've had to talk to my sellers about that and say, look, we still have people from Chicago that are going to be coming in July. Our schools start in early August, so those kids have to be in. So they need a house.
Yeah.
So I've always had good luck in the summer, especially in the
I have
family.
too.
the
I feel blessed in Arizona. I feel like we have a robust market
We
most
do.
of the year. I've never felt like it was there nothing going on, but
You're not dealing with 2 feet of snow in Minnesota.
Don't you know?
yeah. But it's like, but to your point and Jay's point earlier, it just the buyer pool might look different, and even the selling pool, depending on whether they're here full time, whether they have kids, and whether they're buying or selling.
So then here's a piece of fake news I don't think that we've touched on. A lot of times people too will say, oh, homes don't sell in the summer here. So like, what are your thoughts on that? Talking about the market and the conditions.
Oh, people
'Cause
pull their listings.
how many people pull their listings off the market in
A lot- a
December,
lot.
or wait until September, October to even list their homes? So I mean, you're missing out, I think, on an opportunity.
Luxury market definitely pulls back in the summer because a lot of those people are in Coronado or they're in Europe, and so
Yeah, and I've had sellers in the past who were, in an active adult community, for example, where it's a lot of second homes, want to pull something over the summer. But quite honestly,
why would you pull it, especially if you're not there?
those sell in the summer too. I sold them.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of how good open houses are and how houses do sell in the summer, if you're leaving, and you trust your agent, don't you? I mean, if you give them a key, what a time to be open 3 to 5 days a week.
I could be in that
is-
baby every day.
And,
Easy to
noon
show
to
road
night.
everything.
the thing that has changed, and it hasn't been really too recently, but kind of the COVID piece was people are not afraid to get on an airplane and fly down and look at a house.
Right.
I mean, that is, that's it's not a major trip for people anymore.
No.
And there's all these regional
A couple
airlines.
in
And,
this Saturday from Illinois, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
yeah, any agent, my opinion would be that says, take it off for the summer, maybe isn't going to be here either.
Exactly.
So we're here. No, I think
I
housing.
don't leave in the summer.
I think housing year round is a normal state of our market, and the other thing is that the 2 highest times of listing is October and January. Well,
It's where
why-
your most competition.
why compete? There's buyers will buy when they see the right house, and that's the piece of it. So, again, this holding off. Are we going to say no? Probably not. But I think there's a lot of factual stats that can help people understand that it's a good time to be on the market.
Yeah. Agreed.
every day is a showing day.
Every day is a showing.
I bet you there's not one day where a house didn't get shown in Maricopa County. Not one day.
I'm going to believe you on that. We're not going to check.
That's not fake news. Either.
I think
No,
there's at least
that is
one
facts.
house being shown every day.
Absolutely.
There's
Even
always
on very-
someone out there.
Even on very eventful days.
There's
Even
an
in
ask
multiple
for
days.
every seat, is the great Tom.
I'm
Noble
pretty
told
sure
me.
I've gotten a text on
He's
Christmas
such a
to see a house.
philosopher. Tom Noble, the philosopher. We were talking to our Sun City contingent, and Bill, in fact, just sold a house
Yep.
out there. Just to
Active
keep,
adult
he's
community.
well-rounded.
Here we are in
Bill
June.
is. But it was always when I first moved here, Sun City in the summer was like nothing.
Tumbleweeds.
And tumbleweeds, kind of like going out to quartzsite in the summer.
Tombstone.
It's funny, my
Bone dry.
clients in Sun City in just the past few weeks, they were kind of still getting their ducks in a row, right? So the first 2 homes that they really liked that they wanted to make an offer on were gone by the time they got all their ducks lined up. And then once they got their ducks lined up, there were 2 homes again that they said, oh, these are 2 that we're interested in. And then as I called to follow up with the agents, get a little bit more info, one of them said, oh, we just put the contract this morning. So, well, that leaves 1. So even though that is technically like a balance to maybe even a buyer's market a little bit there, they're seeing that there's still activity there, and you have to act. And if you're looking to buy, you can't wait.
What's the price point?
They're under 400, but that's Sunset.
No, but I'm just saying is that that's where it's super competitive in those price ranges.
Yeah, sure.
Anything under 5 is like very competitive.
But active adult communities, because they have a restricted buyer pool,
Right.
don't always behave exactly the same way. So so that price point in an active adult community would be different too. Like in Sun City West, you have homes that are $500,000 and $600,000 too. That part of the market's moving a little bit more slowly, but up to 400 is definitely more.
If you look at Armless sales by price range, I think that's pretty interesting. If you think about year over year into April, what was the hottest market? 500 under. It's up 60% over last year.
Yeah.
And the 5 to a million was down 30, and the million and above was down 9.2%. And I think what that tells you is that highest demand really shows to me people that are maybe they're first-time home buyers, or their initial jump into second home ownership doesn't always start up high, and that's actually good to see, because that's the trickle up. Those buyers selling typically are going to buy up,
Move up.
unless it's an estate and then it ends. But so again, there's so many things that I think as agents we see that buyers and sellers don't see, and again, that really gets back to what's our calling. It's just to make sure that we are educating everybody in their specific price range, the micro market that they're in, the relevant data. Again, nothing matters if it doesn't apply to them and their situation, and that's all we do is study, right?
Yeah, and that's why too, if you look at a lot of these headlines, those are national numbers, and that doesn't mean that Arizona's behaving the same way or that the Northeast is behaving a certain way. It's different depending on where you are.
Another note of what I think is fake news. So OpenTable put out its restaurants with the highest number of reservations, and they put some on that I know that one of our agents frequents. It's actually kind of part of her farm. Ocean 44 and Dominic's and a few others. I don't know what her name is, but they were saying that restaurants with menu prices of $31 and under, and they put those 2 restaurants in there. Now, is that their senior citizen menu, or
That's maybe a chopped salad.
A happy
That's
hour.
the breadbasket price.
You have to go to like Texas Roadhouse for that pricing.
Yeah.
well, anyhow,
Well, no, I mean,
I
yeah.
thought
They may have 1 or 2 menu items.
Yeah.
like a baked potato.
No, I'm sure you could get more than that, but probably not getting the tomahawk steak
No.
for that.
Maybe
Well,
if
where are
you
you
divide
getting
it
that
at
anyway?
the table, the price that's per serving. If you take the tomahawk, right?
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, how
Anyway,
much
I don't
is a
want any-
tomahawk?
I don't want
98?
anyone to be misled. Those
I
are
don't know.
fantastic
Maybe you divide it
restaurants.
by 3
Right,
or
they're
4.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But if you're going in there thinking this is the Golden Corral,
Sizzler.
I'm more of a
I love Sizzler.
I'm on
I
that.
know.
That's where I started as a wee child. My obsession with steak and fried shrimp.
Did
well, you were
Sizzler-
raised right.
Did Sizzler have the buffet?
Sizzler, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Why did we love buffets as a kid?
I don't know. Wendy's had a great salad bar.
Did you guys have
Some-
beefsteak Charlie's?
No, beef
No.
steak.
We had that on the East Coast, and it was like the precursor to like a Sizzler with the buffet and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it was really popular.
Did you have
in the
Ponderosa?
80s. That sounds familiar.
Oh, I used to love.
Wasn't there one called Bonanza?
I think so.
Is
I don't
that
know.
like
I
a
mean,
Western?
Michigan, I
Okay.
had those. Yeah. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Andy, have you ever been to any of those big names that we just threw out there? You just-
Ponderosa.
Which one is your favorite?
I don't like the Ocean 44s and stuff like that.
Oh no!
Oh,
Look
no,
where he goes to, right? No, we're talking about Golden Corral and says,
Probably Ponderosa.
yeah.
I didn't have that in the Northwest.
Okay, there used to be
Yeah.
a really hot buffet here called the King's Table.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay,
All right.
and that is so applicable because we had no King's Day this past week.
Oh, I love it.
And you know what's funny?
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be Father's Day weekend, and we call Kent the King of the Castle.
Yeah.
It's like,
So he's taken
and then
to
the
the
poor
King's
guy
buffet?
is like, no King's Day.
Well,
You
that
know,
was
like,
on Saturday, wasn't it?
I'm so
I think it was
confused.
Tuesday on Sunday, so.
I don't know. I think it went all weekend, the King's Day thing. So whatever. But I could go to Burger King and get him a crown. But
That's funny.
Did you do that?
no, I didn't do that. I didn't do much.
I'm sure she made him feel like a king.
He's not your father.
He's not my father. He's the
It
father.
was your
of
girl's
my
job
children. Yes.
to take care of that
But
situation.
He's a good guy. But anyway, so the King's Table used to be really hot back in the 80s here in Phoenix, just so everyone knows. And I really felt like a princess when I went to the King's
Was that
Table.
like
That's
what's
really
the
cool.
one on Via de Ventura?
What's that?
What is the one like the Renaissance?
Oh, yes.
is it like
Renaissance
that?
Place? No.
Yeah, what is
no,
that called?
Okay, that was that's like the place where they have the jousting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, with the turkeys.
A turkey leg.
Yeah, no
something.
utensils.
Yeah.
Can't get a straw.
No, I don't do that.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
but-
not like that.
no, but the
this
king-
was a buffet.
It was a buffet.
But it was much more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there used to be another good restaurant, Caf Casino, which was
Mm.
a French little like place down by the Biltmore. But it was kind of a buffet. You'd get the
Why are
tray.
you saying buffet?
Because that's how I like to say
Okay.
it.
Because she's from
Because
Detroit.
Yes.
And they say buffet there.
Because I like it. It's like an accent. Oh,
It's French.
yeah.
Buffet.
Yeah. I'm at the buffet, darling.
Croissant at the buffet.
Yeah.
I
So.
like Target.
Boutique, the French store, yes. Andy was from Indiana originally, so, that's why.
Okay, so
I don't
another
think he said
Midwesterner.
Ocean 44, right? You've been there though, I know. You probably hang out there. No?
Hmm.
Hey, you know what though? You probably could eat for free there if you just hung out there, unbutton one top button. And they would be, there's some older gals there probably that
It's
say,
called Cougar.
yeah. I mean,
I don't think my girlfriend would like that.
well,
Let's find
Hey,
out if they
bring
can
her
sponsor
dog
bring
this
her, bring her
podcast.
with, and she can eat for free too.
Oh my gosh. I don't know this.
It's just went sideways.
I think we got hooked.
It's the heat. It's the heat.
I see the train coming around the bend. Oh boy.
So what's some parting words for you guys about inaccuracies or
I see it all the time
misrepresentations?
scrolling. It's
Yeah.
funny because they were trying to actually give data on the amount of price reductions, right? So there was like a whole list that said price reductions in these cities are this percentage of homes. And I was laughing because I'm like, actually, so this is completely wrong. And it's actually more than what you're stating because you guys have 31%. It's actually more like 49 to 51% listening, depending upon if you listen to Tina or, another data analyst,
Yeah.
aficionado, here in the Valley. But so
Well,
they don't give even all their data is wrong.
I think we are really, at an advantage because we have the Cromford Report and Tina Tambor's statistics. And I think if you're a buyer or a seller, you utilize your agent to get to that information. Any market, no matter the perception of it, there's always opportunity. So look at the statistics and how you can work that information, real information, to your advantage.
Yeah.
Opportunity. You summed it up. People only buy and sell a house when there is a why. So if someone doesn't feel like buying or selling right now, they don't have a why.
They're
Well,
not
don't
going
buy
to.
or sell.
Right.
We would all rather do that than go on the 75 home car sick tour with people because they go, yeah, it doesn't. I don't know that really do anything. I mean, that doesn't serve their purpose either. And same with going house on the market. If you are, be prepared to price correctly and do the things that are recommended by your professional, because they're going to get you the highest price within a range. Remember, we can't create new ranges. Probably only appreciation's going to do that. But if you do that, your house will sell. We see that multiple offers all the time still on houses that are priced correctly and presented well. And that doesn't happen in crashes either. You don't have multiple offers when there is a crashing market.
Well, if you position it properly. you can.
That's right.
You know,
Well, if it's
like, let's say it's-
$12,000.
Right. So if the house is, let's say it was worth $500,000 and the market corrects, I don't know what you consider a crash, but let's say it corrects by 10%, so now it's $450,000. If you list that house at $439,000, do you think you'll have multiple offers? Probably, because it's undervalued.
Yeah.
So the market drives the value up.
Which will drive it way over 500. No, I'm just
No, probably not.
No, but it'll drive. It could drive it up. Let's put
Usually
it
it comes to market value with pretty much there to market value.
Isn't
the
that-
difference is you get the choice between terms and conditions.
There's a great fact right there. The market still bears what the market will bear. And in a normal market, not in the crazy COVID market, it doesn't matter if you have multiple offers. Price it house at 500 at 200. Where's it going to settle out? Probably at 500.
Yeah.
I mean, even though there might be frenzy and traffic jams and people taking numbers to get in the house, still going to settle at market.
Yep.
And our job is to help you get market. Wow. We have a lot of responsibility.
We do.
We do, but it's a great responsibility.
Yeah. Keeping up on restaurant trends.
I still love selling furniture.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a few.
Can I hire you to do
I get
that
a few
for
every
me?
year where the furniture is somehow involved in the equation.
Yeah. I love.
I
making
really should
inventory
just go.
lists. Yeah.
I should really start selling furniture.
Yeah.
I'm fantastic at it.
Seriously, I'm
Yeah.
so good.
Well, that used furniture is worth so much today. I mean, if you put it on Facebook Marketplace, you're going
gone.
to get about 80% of retail, aren't you?
Wow.
8%?
80.
Oh no,
It's probably about
8% is
8.
more-
Yeah, I know.
8 is more realistic.
That's
Yeah, we
always.
actually, when we moved here from New York, I sold the entire contents of my home on Facebook Marketplace. And it took me a week. It was literally a full-time job. And I think, I don't know, maybe I made like $3,500. And this is a 5-bedroom house. So I literally, I just wanted it gone.
Then you didn't have to pay to move it. It would have
Correct.
cost you 3 times that
And
to
then
get
I
it
gotta
here.
Yeah.
carry it to the curb,
Yeah.
call special pickup, whatever.
Well, then it's that New
Once in a
York
while.
style furniture here in the desert. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that mixes, does it?
What's that?
New York style furniture in the
No.
desert.
No.
Yeah. See.
No.
What do you have, like colonial or?
Like,
No,
George
actually,
Washington's
because
desk?
It was,
Yeah.
Is it
Now,
dark
like,
and
on our
heavy?
second marriage, we actually had like a mix of furniture. So it looked okay where we were, but it wasn't anything that we really wanted or wanted to.
You wanted to start over, start
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. And the place we bought here was furnished, so that agent got to sell us the furniture too.
See, it all works
Isn't
out.
that fun?
Which was a major convenience, especially in 21 when you couldn't get furniture.
That's true.
So there was
That's
value.
interesting.
That was a bold and brave move to move in 2021 across the country.
Well, we bought in 21. I didn't move until 22.
Okay, whatever, Bill.
Bill, come on, go with the
Take
story.
the compliment.
So
I
the
mean,
thought. Was it? I didn't think it was that
It's like
bold.
so-
I was excited. Like coming
No,
from
it's a-
where I was coming
I
from.
meant bold. Like that's
It's a
good
big
for
deal.
you.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Big
for
ball
everybody.
Bill.
Big
balls, Bill.
There we go. We have his new internet
Checking my
name.
Doge hat.
Oh,
Every office has
Thank you for
one.
the compliment.
Okay, we've taken a turn.
I think
All
so.
right.
Well,
I see the train coming.
on that note, we hope that you all will subscribe, like, comment, share. Anything else? No.
Okay.
Our YouTube channel cracked 50 today.
Oh,
That's actually they send you a milestone on that. Followers, we're a long way from
50,000.
500,000 or 50,000, but our the social
Well, if
media.
Steph would get on the table and dance, I think maybe we could.
There we
do
go.
more.
Sometimes
I'm not doing that until we have paid sponsors. Ocean 44, we mentioned to you about 7 times now.
When Heather's down there next time, she'll get that contract signed. But you'll find us on your favorite podcast channel and, of course, YouTube. And with that, thank you for listening in, and we'll see you next time on The Good, the Bad, and the Orange.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Nice.